This behavior is completely unacceptable, young lady. We expect better from you at this school. Do you understand the seriousness of this? This behavior is completely unacceptable, young lady. We have rules here, and you have clearly broken them.
What do you have to say for yourself?
The fluorescent lights flickered over the linoleum floor of Lincoln High's cafeteria, buzzing like a hive on the edge of collapse. Maya Johnson's tray hovered in her hands. Trembling, she tried to step past the table, but a chorus of laughter snapped her attention. Oh, wow. Did the chocolate girl forget she's in math class? A voice sneered. The words ricocheted in her chest like thrown stones. Her heart thudded. She looked down to see milk and food spilling across the table. Her backpack kicked aside, papers fluttering like wounded birds. Around her, students whispered. Cameras flicked up on phones, smirking. The cafeteria's hum of normalcy had turned into a spotlight aimed straight at her. Seriously, Maya, why don't you just disappear? Another voice cut through, sharp, deliberate. She froze, every nerve screaming. Then the principal appeared, clipboard in hand, eyes gliding over the scene as if reading a menu. Maya, maybe you should just leave for the day, he said, voice polite but cold. No acknowledgement of the taunts, no question of the laughter surrounding her. Maya's chest tightened. A storm of humiliation and disbelief twisted inside her. She clenched her fists, searching for words, any protest. But before she could speak, the lunch bell rang, deafening in its suddenness, slicing the moment into silence. Phones went down, laughter paused, but the weight of the injustice lingered. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. And then, from the back of the cafeteria, a student whispered, "You're not going to like what he just decided." The cafeteria smelled of burnt pizza and disinfectant, a stale combination that pressed against Maya Johnson's nose as she held her tray. She stepped carefully, trying to avoid the chaos of students jostling for seats. It should have been ordinary, just another Friday lunch. But the second she moved past the long row of tables, a shrill voice cut across the din. Oh, wow. Did the chocolate girl forget she's in math class? Maya froze. The words weren't loud, but they hung in the air like smoke, curling around her chest. She dropped her tray slightly, food trembling on the edge. Her eyes darted. Try to measure who had spoken. Laughter erupted. A few students snickered, others pulled out phones. The cafeteria had turned into a stage, and she was center. Seriously, Maya, why don't you just disappear? Another voice added. Heat flared along her cheeks. She swallowed hard, tried to speak, but her throat tightened. A crumpled napkin skidded across the floor. Her backpack was kicked aside. Milk splashed against the edge of the table, sliding toward the floor. The sound of it breaking her silence in a sharp, wet slap. She looked up and saw the principal hovering near the snack bar, clipboard in hand. He scanned the scene like a man examining stock prices, not a girl being humiliated. Maya, maybe you should just leave for the day, he said. His voice was calm, almost courteous, but it landed like a blow. Shock and disbelief tangled in her chest. Her fists clenched involuntarily. She had imagined teachers stepping in, administrators protecting students. But not here, not now. Around her, the students' laughter faded into whispers. Phones were still, eyes darting, waiting. Maya tried again. Words caught in her throat. A tear slid down her temple. Anger coiled with humiliation, a storm in her chest. One boy, standing a few steps away, leaned to her friend and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. You're not going to like what he just decided. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Maya's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed to flee, but her feet fell rooted. She had to understand. Why wasn't he stopping them? Why did the person in charge side with the chaos? The cafeteria noise swelled around her, punctuated by the scrape of a chair and the hum of buzzing lights. She glanced at her friends across the room, hoping for a familiar face, someone to intervene, someone to comfort her. But they looked down, shuffled their trays, avoided her eyes. Fear or indifference, it was impossible to tell. A sharp smell of spilled chocolate milk filled her nose. The liquid glistened under the fluorescent glare, the mess an echo of her ruined dignity. She bent to pick up her notebook, pages damp and smudged, the handwriting blurred. Her mind raced through years of microaggressions, snickers, and dismissals. Each one had been a small cut, but this was public, undeniable, and sanctioned by silence. She breathed in, tasting both milk and resolve. Anger simmered beneath the surface, a low-burning ember she couldn't ignore. She would not be invisible. Not today. Not ever. From across the room, the principal's gaze met hers briefly. A blink, a pause, but no apology, no acknowledgement. Just the same polite detachment, as if he hadn't just witnessed a child's dignity torn to shreds. The lunch bell rang suddenly, its metallic clatter shocking in the moment, slicing the cafeteria noise into a stark, uncomfortable silence. Phones were lowered, whispers ceased, yet the weight of humiliation lingered like a shadow over her shoulders. Maya's mouth opened finally to say something, anything, but no sound came out. She clenched her jaw, her mind racing for options, allies, justice. Then a voice, quiet, almost hidden, floated from the back of the cafeteria. "You're not going to like what he just decided." Her stomach sank, her fist tightened, and in that instant, she realized the fight had only begun. Maya's locker rattled as she tried to shove her books inside, her hands trembling. The hallway was crowded, a river of students flowing past her, some sneering, some pretending not to see. Every step echoed against the lockers, a metronome counting the seconds of dread. She felt eyes on her, whispers brushing her ears like wind over dry leaves. "Did you see what happened at lunch?" someone murmured behind her. She froze, clutching her backpack strap. "Ignore it," she whispered to herself, but the words tasted hollow. She had learned by now that ignoring wasn't enough. Not at Lincoln High. Not when the entire social hierarchy seemed designed to keep her small, invisible, and embarrassed. A group of girls rounded the corner, giggling, their phones raised. One paused, thumb hovering over the screen. "Hey, Maya," she said, smirk sharp as broken glass. "Nice little scene you made." Maya's stomach churned. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice low but steady. The girl shrugged. "It's not me, it's everyone. Just go along. Makes life easier." Her laugh trailed as she rejoined her clique. Easier. The word struck Maya like a punch. Easier for whom? Not her. For everyone else, maybe. She exhaled, trying to calm the storm in her chest, and continued down the hallway. Teachers passed without a glance, their eyes sliding over the chaos like water over glass. A janitor pushed a cart past her, mourning Maya with polite neutrality. Even allies seemed muted. Fear or indifference was everywhere. At her next class, Mr. Thompson, her history teacher, glanced up as she entered. His eyes softened. "Hey, Maya," he said, voice low. "Cafeteria. Rough, huh?" "Yeah," she muttered, sliding into her seat. She could meet his gaze. Too many eyes had seen her fail, and she couldn't risk hope. Mr. Thompson lowered his voice. "If you want, I can talk to the counselor, or, the principal. Might help to document it." Document. Evidence. Witnesses. Maya felt a spark of clarity. She nodded slowly. I'll try." Class droned on, words dissolving into background noise. Her mind replayed the cafeteria scene, the laughter, the milk, the principal's cold smile. A wave of anger hit, thick and bitter. She tapped her pen against the desk, counting silently. 1, 2, 3, each beat a measure of outrage. At lunch the next day, the cafeteria was quieter, almost eerily so. Maya carried her tray with practiced care. She noticed that students who had been loud before now avoided eye contact. Some whispered behind hands, eyes flicking to her briefly. Others scrolled through phones, mouths tight with guilt or amusement. A boy from the previous day approached cautiously, backpack slung low. Maya," he said, voice uncertain. I didn't think it would get that bad. Sorry." She blinked at him. "Sorry for what?" "For, the lunch thing, the posts, the jokes." Maya's lips pressed into a line. She wanted to say something sharp, to lash out, but instead she nodded once, slowly. "Just stay out of it." He hesitated, then retreated. Silence descended. It wasn't peace. It was observation. The kind of quiet that followed storms, when everyone waits to see who will sink and who will survive. Her friends hovered nearby, hesitant. "Do you want us to?" one whispered. "Don't," Maya said firmly. Her voice carried weight she hadn't intended. "I need to see this for myself." Alone in the corner, she opened her notebook, pages smeared from yesterday's milk, pen trembling in hand. She began writing everything down, the taunts, the laughter, the phones, the principal's words. Names, times, gestures. She cataloged the injustice with the precision of a detective, each detail a brick in a foundation she hoped would hold her case. When she looked up, she saw another student across the cafeteria, eyes tracking her. Sarah Bennett, a quiet girl from her chemistry class, nodded subtly. Maya returned the nod. A small, fragile alliance, but an alliance nonetheless. The bell rang. Students surged toward the exits. Maya closed her notebook and tucked it into her backpack. In the hallway, she overheard two boys talking near the lockers. "Think she's going to complain?" one asked. "Doesn't matter," the other said. "No one listens to her anyway. Principal already told her to leave." Maya's hands curled into fists at her sides. She realized something terrifying. The cafeteria incident wasn't isolated. It was a pattern, a system, from teachers to administrators, from students to staff. The rules were clear. Protect the popular, dismiss the marginalized, and silence anyone who resisted. She exhaled, slow and deliberate. Her heart still thudded, but beneath the fear, determination bloomed. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. She wouldn't let them get away with it. She would speak, record, document, and make the system answer. As she walked past the gym, a poster caught her eye. Lincoln High, excellence through discipline and respect. The slogan felt hollow, almost cruel. She laughed quietly to herself, a brittle sound that masked the fire in her chest. Excellence and respect. Words meant for everyone else. At her locker, she paused and looked at her reflection in the metal door. Dark eyes stared back, tired but unbroken. "They can't erase me," she whispered. A hand tapped her shoulder. Startled, she turned. Mr. Thompson crouched slightly, voice low. "Maya, you're brave for standing up, but you're going to need allies. Don't try this alone. We'll help however we can." She nodded. The hallway noise surged again, lockers clanging, students laughing, gossiping, phones buzzing. The world hadn't changed, but she had. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving humiliation. She was preparing to confront it. And deep down, a cold, certain thought settled in. The principal's decision yesterday would not go unanswered. By Monday morning, the cafeteria incident had already metastasized into something larger than Maya could contain. Her phone vibrated constantly, texts, DMs, group chats, but she didn't pick it up. Every notification was a dagger, a reminder that her humiliation had become entertainment. At first, she tried to ignore it. In algebra class, Ms. Reynolds glanced at her over the rim of her glasses. "Maya, your homework, is it late?" she asked, tone neutral, but her eyes flickered to the whispers circulating behind Maya's desk. I turned it in," Maya muttered, keeping her head down. "Very well," Ms. Reynolds said, and the class moved on, but the tension lingered like a stain on the air. Later in the hall, she caught snippets of conversations. "Did you see the vid from lunch? She freaked out so bad. She's crying over nothing. Classic. They said the principal told her to leave. What a joke." Each word, each laugh, pierced deeper than the milk spill, deeper than the whispers in the hall. She noticed a screenshot circulating online, blurry but identifiable. Her lunch tray splattered across the floor, her tear-streaked face caught in high-resolution mockery. Comments layered on, some cruel, some joking, some just indifferent. Maya felt herself shrinking inside, a marionette whose strings had been yanked too violently. But somewhere, beneath the shame, a spark remained. She couldn't let this stand, not only for herself, but for every whispered, "You're overreacting," that would follow. During lunch, she approached a table where some classmates were eating, their phones open. "Stop sharing those posts," she said, voice trembling but firm. One boy, Tyler, looked up, smirk curling on his lips. Why? You want the whole school to see you cry again. Enough, she said, louder this time. Heads turned. Phones were raised. The room's energy snapped tight, taut as a wire. Relax, Maya. Another girl said, her tone mocking. It's just fun. Maya's fists clenched. Fun? You think someone's humiliation is fun? You think the principal telling me to leave is fun? The cafeteria grew still. Phones hovered midair, murmurs stilled. Even the loudest of her tormentors paused, unsure. Whatever you think you're doing, Tyler said finally, voice dropping an octave. It won't matter. He's already made it clear. Her stomach lurched. The principal. Again. His absence was deafening, his authority suffocating. She backed away, retreating toward her corner table. Heart racing. She opened her notebook and began to write furiously. Every taunt, every screenshot, every whispered insult. Names, dates, times, places, evidence. For the first time, documenting felt like armor. At that moment, a quiet voice broke through. Maya, you okay? She looked up. Sarah Bennett, the girl from chemistry, perched at the edge of the table, notebook in hand. I can help, she said softly. I've seen the posts. I can save them for you. Maya blinked, then nodded. Relief pooled briefly in her chest. She wasn't completely alone. Maybe someone could see the injustice, not just the spectacle. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers, stifled laughs, and sidelong glances. By third period, rumors had spread to social media platforms. Snapshots in the cafeteria were everywhere. Captions mocking, emojis cruel, commentary relentless. She overheard friends muttering. She's going to make a scene, just wait. Good. Serves her right for crying. Each sentence hit like a stone against glass. The world had decided her pain was public property, and the principal's silence had given permission. By the end of the day, Maya felt both exhausted and alive. Exhausted from the constant micro-assaults, alive from the knowledge that the system could be challenged. She had a plan forming. Screenshots saved, witnesses identified, moments logged. If no one else would see the injustice, she would make sure it could not be ignored. Her mother called that evening. Maya, she said, voice steady but concerned, I saw some of the posts online. What happened at school? Maya exhaled, a long, trembling sigh. It's bad. People are saying things, posting things. No one's stopping them. Then we'll stop them, her mother said firmly. We'll make them see that this isn't just high school drama. This is harassment, and you have a right to be heard. Her father chimed in from the other side of the line. Document everything. Every post, every comment, every taunt. This is the system failing you. We'll make sure it can't hide behind that. Maya nodded silently. The warmth of family mixed with the bitterness of injustice. She realized the fight wasn't just about the cafeteria or the rumor mill. It was about power, silence, and systemic neglect. That night, she opened her laptop and scrolled through every platform. Screenshots, notes, timestamps. Every cruel meme, every laughing emoji, every whispered comment. Saved. Cataloged. Bulletproof. Then came a message from an unknown number. You're really making waves. Be careful. Her heart skipped a beat. Threat or warning. She didn't know. She saved it anyway. Evidence like armor. As she closed her laptop, a thought lingered. The cafeteria had been just the beginning. The rumors, the posts, the whispers, they were the first wave. But waves could be weathered. Storms could be faced. And she was learning, painfully, that invisibility was no longer an option. The system had made its choice. She was expendable. Maya clenched her fist on the edge of the desk, gaze sharp in the reflection of the screen. They think I'm alone, she whispered. They're wrong. And in that quiet, tense moment, the first seeds of resistance were planted. The counselor's office smelled of beige carpet and faint disinfectant. A sterile cocoon that felt almost designed to mute anger and fear. Maya sat stiffly in the worn chair, hands clutching her backpack in her lap. Across from her, Ms. Greer, the school counselor, adjusted her glasses and smiled with neutrality that felt rehearsed. So, Maya, Ms. Greer began, voice soft, careful. I hear you had a rough day in the cafeteria. Maya's fingers twitched. Rough? That word barely touched the edge of what had happened. Rough? She echoed, voice tight. People humiliated me. Phone's out. Milk spilled. Principal told me to leave. That's not rough. That's public humiliation. Ms. Greer nodded slowly, her pen hovering above a notepad. I understand it was embarrassing. But, these things happen in school sometimes. Teens, emotions run high. Misunderstandings, jokes, that sort of thing. Maya blinked, heart thudding. Misunderstandings? Jokes? She could feel the weight of every whisper, every phone camera, every taunt pressed down again. This isn't a joke. They called me. She stopped, shook her head, words tangled in anger and disbelief. I don't know racial slurs. And you're saying it's just teen drama? Ms. Greer's hand hovered over the pen again. I'm saying it's complicated. Sometimes it's hard to separate feelings from facts. And the principal, he did suggest you leave to cool down. That's standard procedure. Maya's stomach twisted. Standard procedure? Humiliation as policy? She clenched her jaw, voice low but firm. So, I'm supposed to accept that? Because it's convenient for school? Now, Ms. Greer said, leaning back in her chair, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We can talk about strategies, maybe finding allies, focusing on your academics, staying calm. That's productive. Maya stared. Productive, like swallowing injustice was a lesson in composure. Her fists curled in her lap, nails digging into palms. I'm not here for strategies to ignore it, she said. I'm here because adults in the school failed me. I need someone who'll take this seriously. Ms. Greer tapped her pen against a notepad. I understand your feelings. Really, I do. But sometimes there's nothing that can be done immediately. You have to navigate carefully, or it could escalate. Escalate. Maya's voice sharpened. So my humiliation could get worse? That's your solution? The counselor tilted her head, sighing softly. I'm just saying, be mindful. Documentation, talking to trusted teachers, and patience, these are your tools. Maya felt the anger twist into a tight coil. Documentation, trusted teachers, patience. She had already started collecting screenshots, recording everything, noting witnesses. But the implication that she needed patience, to wait for justice to trickle down from adults who refused to act, was galling. I've been documenting everything, Maya said. Every post, every comment, every phone video. I have friends who are willing to back me up. Witnesses. Evidence. Ms. Greer nodded, slow, measured. That's good. That's responsible. But, you see, sometimes the system itself can be tricky. Even with evidence, outcomes aren't guaranteed. Maya felt heat rise along her neck. So, even if I prove they were wrong, you'll still protect them? That's what you're saying. The counselor's hand paused mid-gesture. I'm saying the principal's office, administration, they have policies, procedures. We have to follow them. Sometimes that means the process seems unfair. Maya's chest tightened. Policies, procedures, fairness, words meant to mask inaction. Her hands shook, clutching the straps of her backpack. She realized the fight wasn't just against classmates. It was against a system built to absorb her outrage and spit out silence. I'm not going to let them get away with this, Maya said quietly, but her voice carried steel beneath the exhaustion. I will document, I will speak, I will make them answer. And I won't let anyone tell me that patience is the solution to humiliation. Ms. Greer nodded slowly, but her eyes betrayed nothing, neither judgment nor encouragement. I hear you, she said finally. Just remember to stay safe. Things can get complicated when adults are involved. Not everyone will respond the way you hope. Maya stood abruptly. The chair screeched across the floor. Then I'll make them respond, even if the adults won't. She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. The hallway outside felt different. Still crowded, still buzzing with whispers, but somehow hers now. She walked with purpose, eyes scanning faces, cataloging potential allies and witnesses. Each student, each teacher, each passing glance became a piece of the puzzle she was determined to solve. In the cafeteria later that day, she noticed subtle changes. Students avoided cameras around her. Conversations stuttered when she walked by. Some whispered encouragement, though tentatively. She saw Sarah Bennett again, sitting quietly at a corner table, notebook ready. Maya nodded, a small but significant acknowledgement of solidarity. She returned to her locker at the end of the day, taking a deep breath. The counselor's office had been a disappointment, but it had clarified something essential. The adults in power were not her allies. They might offer platitudes, suggest patience, or cite policy, but she would have to create her own path to justice. At home, she opened her laptop again. Screenshots, videos, timestamps, organized and ready. Every small insult, every microaggression, every social media post became a thread in a tapestry of accountability. The storm of humiliation had exposed a systemic rot, and now she would expose it in turn. As she closed her laptop at night, she whispered to herself, voice steady despite the exhaustion, "I'll make them answer, and I won't be silent." Maya's bedroom smelled of lavender and paper. The faint scent of her mother's laundry mixed with stacks of school notebooks and scattered textbooks. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. She picked it up, ignoring most notifications, until her mom's name blinked on the screen. Maya. Her mother's voice was calm but sharp, measured. "I saw some of the posts online. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Maya took a deep breath, sinking onto the edge of her bed. "It's worse than you think. The cafeteria, the laughter, phones recording me. Milk spilled. Principal told me to leave. Everyone's talking, sharing posts. Teachers, some just ignore it. The counselor wants me to be patient. It's overwhelming." Her mother's silence on the line was brief, but heavy. "All right," she said finally, "we're going to handle this together, but we need to be strategic. First, we gather every bit of evidence. You already have some." Maya nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. "Screenshots, videos, witness notes. Sarah's helping too." Her mother exhaled, a sound that carried relief and frustration in equal measure. "Good. That's a start. Then we escalate. We bring this to the school board if we have to. And we make sure the principal knows. No one can sweep this under the rug. We'll use every channel available, emails, letters, even the local news if needed. This isn't just about humiliation, Maya. This is about accountability." Her father, listening on speaker, added, "You're not alone. Schools can be tricky. Administrators protect themselves, not students. But adults outside the system, they can make sure justice is pursued. We'll make sure your voice is heard." Maya's chest tightened, relief and fear twisting together. "And the bullies?" she asked, almost quietly. "What about them?" "They will face consequences," her mother said firmly. "But this isn't about revenge. It's about teaching responsibility and making sure the system can't continue protecting them while ignoring you." Her father's voice softened. "You've been documenting well. That's your power. Every post, every comment, every witness, keep it organized. That's how change happens. Systemic change." The conversation shifted to logistics. Letters to the principal, copies of screenshots, arranging meetings with the school board, and possible legal consultation. Maya listened, absorbing every word, every plan, the structure, the strategy, the action. They were a lifeline she hadn't realized she needed. The next morning, Maya walked into the school with a different kind of awareness. The hallways seemed the same, students gossiping, lockers clanging, phones buzzing, but she walked with quiet certainty. Each glance, each whisper, each smirk from a peer was cataloged. She was no longer just a target. She was a strategist. During first period, she quietly passed a note to Sarah Bennett, who raised her eyebrows and nodded. Their alliance was fragile but vital. Every small support mattered. In the cafeteria at lunch, Maya noticed Tyler, the boy who had mocked her. He looked uncomfortable, avoiding direct eye contact. She held her gaze briefly, letting him see the fire behind her eyes. A small, tactical victory. She was no longer invisible. At home that evening, Maya and her parents worked together on a formal letter to the principal. Every incident was listed meticulously. Names, times, screenshots, videos. The tone was professional, factual, but firm. Her mother dictated phrasing, emphasizing accountability and systemic responsibility. This, her mother said, tapping the document, isn't just about your humiliation. It's about making sure the school cannot dismiss this behavior because it's convenient. That's the bigger picture. The principle of fairness, the protection of students. It's all on the line. Maya felt a surge of pride. So, we're fighting the system? Her father chuckled softly, a dry, quiet sound. Not fighting, navigating, guiding it to do what it's supposed to do. Sometimes it needs a little push. The following days brought a tense, charged atmosphere at school. Maya noticed teachers glancing at her differently. Some with suspicion, some with curiosity, others with quiet acknowledgement. The bullies were restless, less certain in their mockery. The social hierarchy had shifted imperceptibly, and Maya could feel it. At lunch, she approached Tyler directly. "I suggest you stop sharing any posts," she said, calm but unwavering. "And I hope you understand this is being documented." Tyler's smirk faltered. "Whatever," he muttered, voice lower, uncertain. Maya nodded and walked away, feeling a strange satisfaction. Small victories, careful maneuvers, accountability in motion. Later, her mother called. "We've scheduled a meeting with the principal. You'll be presenting your evidence. I know it sounds daunting, but remember, you're not alone. We're doing this together." Maya exhaled, leaning back on her bed. Her body felt tense, her mind alert, but for the first time, she wasn't consumed by fear. She was preparing, strategizing, taking action. The humiliation had been public, relentless. But now, so was her resolve. She opened her laptop, organizing screenshots and notes in folders labeled by date and incident. She reviewed messages from witnesses, confirming who would speak if needed. Every piece of evidence became a shield, every observation a weapon of truth. As she closed her laptop for the night, she whispered to herself, voice steady, "They think this will break me. They're wrong. I'll make them answer, and they won't be able to ignore it." For the first time, Maya understood the power of preparation, the weight of strategy, and the importance of allies. The battle was no longer just personal. It was systemic, and she was ready. By midweek, Maya's resolve had crystallized into action. The cafeteria, the hallways, the whispers, everything became evidence. Each glance, each smartphone recording, every cruel laugh, cataloged. She felt the weight of what she was building. A case so clear, even the principal couldn't ignore it. At lunch, she spotted Tyler and his friends crowded near the vending machines, phones in hand. They laughed, oblivious, or perhaps daring her to retaliate. Maya squared her shoulders and walked directly toward them, notebook tucked under her arm. "Tyler," she said, voice calm but sharp, "we need to talk." He glanced up, smirk flickering. "About what?" "Your diary of insults." "No," she said. "About the posts, the videos, the harassment. It's documented. Every name, every comment. And you," she held his gaze, "will be accountable." A friend of Tyler scoffed. "You think showing receipts will scare anyone?" Maya shook her head, notebook tapping her thigh with each movement. "It's not about scaring anyone. It's about truth, about what's real. You think this is fun? It's not, and it won't be ignored." Tyler's smirk wavered, replaced by a flicker of unease. "Whatever. You can try." "That's all I need," Maya said. She turned and walked away, leaving their laughter hollow and uncertain. Across the cafeteria, Sarah Bennett gave her a thumbs up, eyes wide with respect. Allies were few, but their presence made her steps lighter. She returned to her corner table, opening her notebook. Every detail from the past week had been recorded. Names, timestamps, screenshots, videos, witness accounts. She organized them, double-checked evidence, and prepared for the confrontation that was coming. Later, in chemistry class, Maya overheard students whispering again. Some mentioned the principal's upcoming meeting. Some speculated about the school board, and a few feared she was gaining momentum. The tide had shifted, subtly but undeniably. Fear had started to circulate among those who had wielded power lightly. After class, she approached a group of students who had witnessed the cafeteria incident. I need your support, she said, voice calm but firm. If anyone asks, you tell the truth. You saw what happened. No embellishments, no silence. One student hesitated. But won't that make things worse for us? Possibly, Maya admitted, but staying silent makes it worse for me, and for anyone else who might be targeted in the future. You want to be on the right side of this, right? Heads nodded, reluctantly but surely. Witnesses were rallying quietly but importantly. That evening, Maya sat with her parents at the kitchen table, laptop open, documents spread like armor. We need a timeline, her mother said, pointing at the organized files. Every incident, every witness, every post. Keep it clean, factual. Emotion is powerful, but evidence is bulletproof. Her father added, make sure you have backups. Cloud, USB, hard copy. If the system fails, we want to make sure nothing can be erased. Maya nodded, absorbing every instruction. She realized the enormity of what they were doing, challenging not just the bullies, but the system protecting them. The stakes were higher than she had imagined, but so was her determination. The next day, she found herself in the hallway outside the principal's office. Her backpack was heavy, loaded not just with books but with evidence, notebooks, and printed screenshots. She could hear the faint murmur of students outside the office, the principal's voice behind the door. She took a deep breath, feeling a storm of anxiety and resolve collide. Her stomach twisted, but her hands were steady. This was her moment, the turning point. As she entered, the principal looked up from his desk, clipboard in hand, expression polite but detached. Maya, come in. What's this about? She set her notebook on the desk, flipping it open to the first page. This is about everything. Cafeteria, posts, whispers, harassment. Every insult, every video, every witness. I have evidence. I have documentation. And I'm not asking for patience. I'm asking for accountability. The principal adjusted his glasses, scanning a few pages. Maya, we discussed this. Sometimes you just need to let things settle. Students react. Things blow over. That's how schools work. This isn't about blowing over, Maya said, voice rising but controlled. This is about a system that protected bullies and humiliated me. And I have witnesses and evidence, and I will make sure everyone knows the truth. He leaned back, a slight crease forming on his forehead. Evidence doesn't always guarantee outcomes. You understand that? I understand, she said. But what I also understand is that ignoring this guarantees injustice. And I won't allow that. Not for me. Not for anyone else. He sighed, leaning forward. His calm demeanor faltered for the first time. You've been thorough. Maya nodded, eyes steady. I've been diligent. And I will continue to be. Because what happened cannot be forgotten, and it cannot be excused. The principal looked down at the pages, silent. He finally lifted his eyes to meet hers, a flicker of unease in his gaze. Maya felt a surge of quiet triumph. This was a turning point. She had forced the system to pause, to reckon, to consider consequences. She left the office with her notebook under her arm, heart racing but filled with purpose. Outside, the hallway buzzed with the usual chatter, but she felt different, seen, prepared, resolute. The storm was coming, and for the first time, she was not only surviving it, she was steering it. At home, her parents listened as she recounted the confrontation. You held your ground, her mother said, pride and caution mingling in her voice. Now, the next steps matter even more. Strategy, patience, persistence. You've started the storm. Now we guide it. Maya nodded, feeling a mixture of fatigue and exhilaration. The bullies had been confronted. The system forced a pause. Witnesses gathered. The tide was turning, and she was ready to see it through. Maya's stomach tightened as she stepped into the principal's office, her notebook pressed against her chest like armor. This was it. The culmination of days of humiliation, whispered rumors, and silent observation. She had allies, evidence, witnesses, and determination. But the air inside the office was thick with authority, power, and the faint scent of polished wood and bureaucratic sterility. Sit, the principal said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His voice was calm, professional. But there was an edge Maya hadn't noticed before, as if he understood that this meeting might shift the balance. Maya sat, notebook open. "I've documented everything," she said, voice steady. "Every post, every comment, every taunt. Witnesses, screenshots, timestamps. I'm here to make sure this school, addresses it properly." He adjusted his glasses and leaned back. "Maya, I've reviewed the reports. I understand it's upsetting, but schools are complicated. Students overreact. Misunderstandings happen. You must understand that." "This isn't a misunderstanding," Maya said sharply. "This is systemic harassment. Bullies recorded me. Phones were raised. Teachers and staff ignored it. And the principal told me to leave. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a policy failure." He cleared his throat. "I'm responsible for all students. Actions have to be measured. Overreaction can cause more issues than the incident itself." Maya's jaw tightened. "Measured? So humiliation and bias are acceptable as long as it's measured?" Her eyes burned with quiet fury. "This isn't about overreaction. This is about truth, accountability, and justice. And I will make sure you understand the consequences of inaction." The principal's calm facade cracked slightly. "You've certainly been thorough." "I've been diligent," Maya said, flipping through her notebook. "Cafeteria incidents, witness statements, social media posts, every detail recorded. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for responsibility. If the school ignores this, it's complicit." He looked away, shifting papers on his desk, then back to her. "Even with evidence, outcomes aren't guaranteed. There are procedures, processes. You have to respect them." "I respect accountability," Maya said, leaning forward. "But I will not allow policy to protect bullies while silencing victims. Not here. Not now." A silence stretched between them. Outside, the hallway buzzed faintly with students and footsteps. Inside, the tension pressed against the polished wood and fluorescent light. Finally, the principal sighed. "Very well. You've made your point. But consequences must follow process. Disciplinary review, meetings, documentation." "I provided documentation," Maya said, voice sharp. "I have witnesses. I have evidence. I expect formal consequences for those responsible." He nodded slowly, eyes narrowing. "I see. And you're prepared to ensure that every detail is accounted for." "Yes," she said firmly. "I've been prepared for days. I will make sure the system cannot dismiss or minimize this again. I will ensure accountability. And I will make sure the bullies and anyone who ignored this are held responsible." He leaned back, fingers steepled. "You've clearly thought this through. I can't deny that." Maya felt a surge of quiet triumph. The balance had shifted. For the first time, authority recognized her presence, not as a complaint, but as a force that demanded action. "You understand," she said, "that I have allies, witnesses, family, and I'm willing to escalate if necessary." "Yes," he said finally, voice quieter, almost strained. "I understand, and we will begin the review process immediately." Maya exhaled, but her mind was alert. The fight wasn't over. The system would respond, yes, but she would ensure it was thorough, transparent, and accountable. After leaving the office, she noticed Sarah Bennett waiting outside. "Well," Sarah asked, eyes wide. "They're starting the review," Maya said. "The principal can't ignore it anymore." Sarah smiled faintly. "I knew you'd do it." Maya nodded. The cafeteria, the hallways, the whispers, everything had led to this moment. And now, the system itself was being forced to respond. At home, she and her parents reviewed the next steps. Copies of evidence were sent to the school board. Witnesses were prepped to give statements. Social media posts were documented. Every detail was cataloged with precision. Her mother said, "You've turned humiliation into strategy. That's bravery, Maya. Not everyone could do that." Her father added, "And the system has to respond now. They can't ignore this. You've created accountability, proof they have to face." Maya nodded, exhausted but resolute. She realized that the battle had been about more than her dignity. It had been about exposing a system that allowed cruelty to go unchecked. Teaching others that silence was complicity. The following days were tense. Teachers whispered in hallways. Students watched her with wary curiosity, and the principal moved with unusual precision, documenting, consulting, and preparing disciplinary measures. The bullies were aware, anxious, uncertain, faltering. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted, and in quiet moments, Maya reflected on the cost. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the night spent documenting, planning, and preparing. The humiliation had left scars, but it had also forged resolve. By the end of the week, the principal called a formal meeting. Maya entered with Sarah at her side, evidence in hand, parents attending virtually. The bullies sat quietly, uneasy. The room was tense, charged, and electric with anticipation. Maya felt the storm she had started rise around her, the power of preparation, witnesses, and unflinching truth converging in one moment. And she knew with certainty that the system would finally respond. The school board meeting room smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood, the low hum of fluorescent lights buzzing in the background. Maya sat at the front table, notebook open, witnesses beside her, parents attending virtually. Every eye in the room seemed to watch her. Teachers, administrators, even the bullies, faces pale, eyes uncertain. The principal sat at the side, his clipboard heavier than ever, flipping through the documentation Maya had compiled. Silence settled, thick and charged. Maya's mother leaned toward her laptop, voice calm but firm. "Remember, Maya, stick to facts. Speak clearly. Let the truth do the work." Her father nodded beside her. "You prepared for this. Evidence is on your side. Don't let nerves shake you." Maya inhaled slowly, chest tight, but mind sharp. This was the moment she had worked toward. The turning point crystallized into confrontation. She cleared her throat. "I am Maya Johnson. On Friday, I was publicly humiliated in the cafeteria. Bullies recorded the incident, posted videos online, and spread messages that targeted me. The principal told me to leave, and staff did not intervene. I have documented every post, every comment, every taunt, with witnesses to corroborate the events." She flipped to the first page of her notebook. "I am presenting evidence not for revenge, but for accountability, so that future students are not silenced, so that harassment does not continue unchallenged." A hush fell over the room. One by one, witnesses stood, recounting what they saw. Voices quivered, hesitant at first, then firmer as Maya's courage anchored them. "I saw the posts," Sarah Bennett said. "I can confirm the videos were taken and shared without consent. Maya did nothing to provoke this." Another student added, "Teachers walked by?" Some laughed. Phones were out. "I don't want to be ignored anymore. No one should have to experience this." The principal shifted uncomfortably. I see that the situation was serious. We will conduct disciplinary reviews and enforce consequences where appropriate." Maya's voice remained steady. "Disciplinary reviews must include the students involved, as well as any staff who failed to act. Accountability is for everyone. Silence is complicity." A board member cleared her throat. "Mr. Principal, the documentation is clear. This level of harassment and administrative oversight cannot go unaddressed. Immediate measures will be taken. Consequences will be enforced." The bullies' faces drained of color. The students who had once whispered cruelly now avoided eye contact, unsure of what was coming. The principal's authority, once intimidating, seemed restrained under the weight of documented truth. After hours of testimony, deliberation, and review, the board delivered its decision. Maya's heart pounded, a strange mixture of anxiety and anticipation. The lead board member spoke. "Due to overwhelming evidence, disciplinary action will be enforced against the students involved in the cafeteria incident and subsequent online harassment. Staff who fail to intervene will be formally warned, and training on harassment and racial sensitivity will be mandatory. The school's administration is responsible for implementing these measures promptly." Maya exhaled slowly, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her notebook felt lighter, not because the weight of the evidence was gone, but because justice, however measured, had begun to take shape. Her mother's voice trembled with pride over the video call. "You did it, Maya. You made them listen." Her father added, "You turned pain into action. That's something no one can take away. Maya felt a wave of emotion rise, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and something fragile. Hope. Yet even in victory, she understood the cost. The humiliation, the anxiety, the sleepless nights documenting every detail. It had changed her. She was stronger, yes, but scarred in ways she could not ignore. Walking through the halls after the meeting, students' whispers followed her. Some were tentative apologies, others curious glances, and a few avoided her entirely. But she held her head high. She had survived, resisted, and forced accountability in a system designed to protect the powerful. Sarah Bennett joined her as they walked toward the exit. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for everyone who would have been next." Maya nodded, glancing at the hallways that had once felt like a gauntlet of fear. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, "but it had to be done. People can't be allowed to think silence protects them." The bullies were removed from certain classes, given consequences, and monitored closely. Staff involved in negligence attended mandatory training sessions. The principal, humbled and constrained by oversight, moved with a careful attention he had not shown before. The balance of power, once skewed, had begun to recalibrate. At home that night, Maya opened her laptop one final time, reviewing screenshots and notes. She paused, reflecting. The battle had been fought and largely won, but the scars, both social and emotional, would remain. She closed the laptop, exhaling deeply, the weight of tension slowly lifting. Her mother approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You showed courage, Maya. You demanded accountability. And even though it cost you emotionally, you stood your ground. That's strength." Her father smiled, quiet but proud. "Systems fail sometimes. But people like you make them answer. You turn injustice into change." Maya felt the warmth of that acknowledgement, the steadiness of family support, and the certainty of her own resilience. The fight against injustice was never simple. It was costly. It demanded courage, strategy, and unflinching resolve. But she had survived, and she had made a difference. As she lay in bed that night, Maya reflected on the journey, the cafeteria humiliation, the whispers in the hall, the counselor's dismissal, the rumor mill, the strategic documentation, the confrontation with authority, and the ultimate justice delivered. The world was imperfect, the system flawed. But change, however incremental, was possible. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a quiet truth. She would never let silence or fear dictate her life again. Maya closed her eyes, a mix of exhaustion and triumph washing over her. Justice had been served. The cost had been high, but resilience, courage, and truth had prevailed. Weeks had passed since the school board decision. Lincoln High had shifted in ways subtle but undeniable. Hallways no longer echoed with whispered cruelty aimed at Maya, and the cafeteria, once a gauntlet of fear, felt less like a battlefield. Change, incremental but real, had begun to ripple through the school's culture. Maya walked to her locker, notebook in hand, scanning the hallway. Some students glanced at her cautiously. Others avoided her gaze entirely. She had become a symbol, not by choice but by circumstance. It was exhausting, but strangely empowering. "Hey, Maya," Sarah Bennett whispered as she approached. "I wanted to let you know people are noticing. Some students are apologizing quietly. Teachers are talking differently, too." Maya nodded, lips pressed together. "It's not perfect," she said, "but it's moving in the right direction. Small victories count." A teacher, Mr. Thompson, passed by and gave her a subtle nod. No words were exchanged, but acknowledgement carried weight. It was different from the dismissive glances of before. The system had been shaken, even if only slightly, and Maya could feel it. At lunch, Maya noticed a poster on the bulletin board. Respect, accountability, and safety for every student, Lincoln High Initiative. Her stomach tightened. Her fight had triggered policy changes, mandatory staff training, and student accountability programs. Her humiliation had sparked awareness, a painful, costly, but necessary wake-up call. Later, in her room, Maya opened her laptop. Screenshots, notes, and messages, archived meticulously, remained as evidence, not out of fear, but as a reminder of the journey she had endured. She clicked through the folders, reading the names of witnesses who had bravely spoken. She typed a quick message to each. "Thank you. Your courage mattered." The responses trickled in short, grateful notes, subtle acknowledgments of solidarity. Maya felt warmth seep to the tension that had dominated her life for weeks. She was no longer alone in her fight. At home, the family sat together at dinner. Conversation flowed easily, a stark contrast to the intense strategizing sessions of previous nights. "You did something important," her mother said, placing a hand over Maya's. "Not just for yourself, but for anyone who will face bullying or harassment in the future." Her father added, "You showed what accountability looks like. Systems can fail, people can turn away, but courage, evidence, and persistence can create real change." Maya swallowed, emotions tight in her chest. "It was exhausting," she admitted, "and I still feel drained, but I also feel strong. I've learned that silence is easier, but it's also dangerous. Speaking up is costly, but necessary." Her mother nodded. "Exactly. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. And you've done more than most adults manage to do in a lifetime." The following week, Maya noticed subtle shifts in the behavior of her peers. The bullies, still present, were quieter, hesitant, aware that the administration had changed course. Social media posts targeting students were monitored, and the administration had begun actively responding to reports of harassment. The system, once indifferent, now had a spark of accountability. Maya also began mentoring younger students who had faced similar treatment. Quiet conversations in hallways, private notes exchanged during class breaks, and small guidance sessions after school became her way of paying forward the strength she had cultivated. "You don't have to stay silent," she told one eighth grader who was terrified of speaking out. "But if you do, make sure someone knows. Document it. Find allies. You are not invisible, even if it feels that way." The girl nodded, eyes wide, absorbing every word. Maya realized her own journey, steeped in humiliation, strategy, and confrontation, was now a blueprint for resilience. On a Friday afternoon, Maya sat alone in the cafeteria, notebook closed, observing the room. The noise, laughter, and chatter felt almost normal. She realized she was no longer scanning for whispers or raised phones. The fear that had accompanied every step to the halls was lifting, replaced by vigilance tempered with calm. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Bennett. "You did it. Really. You made a difference." Maya smiled faintly, replying simply, "We did it. Together." Later that evening, she reflected quietly in her room. The fight had cost her sleepless nights, anxiety, and the lingering sting of public humiliation, but it had given her more: resilience, strategy, understanding, and the knowledge that even flawed systems could be compelled to respond when confronted with truth. She wrote in her journal, "Change isn't instant. Justice isn't perfect. But speaking, documenting, resisting, that's how the ripples spread. And the ripples are worth it." As she closed her journal and gazed out the window at the fading sunlight over Lincoln High, she understood something profound. Courage could be contagious. Truth could be weaponized constructively, and even small acts of defiance could reshape the system. Maya whispered to herself, almost inaudibly but with certainty, "I won't be silent ever again." And in that moment, she felt a quiet power, a mix of relief, pride, and readiness for whatever challenges lay ahead. The storm had passed, but the ripples of her actions would continue, carrying lessons of accountability, resilience, and justice through every hallway she walked. The first Monday of the new term felt different at Lincoln High. Hallways buzzed with routine chatter, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, but Maya walked with an ease she hadn't felt in months. The storm of whispers, videos, and public humiliation had faded. In its place, a quiet awareness lingered. Teachers watched more closely, students were hesitant to bully, and accountability had become more than a distant promise. Maya passed the cafeteria, noting how differently students moved through it. A few glanced their way with tentative respect, while others whispered in hushed tones, clearly weighing their words. The bullies, Tyler and his small circle, sat at a table near the wall, subdued, their phones mostly forgotten. Public shaming wasn't their weapon anymore. The weight of consequence hung over them like an invisible chain. She spotted Sarah Bennett waving from her usual corner. "Morning," Maya said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Morning," Sarah replied, eyes bright. "You're different now. Confident. The whole school notices." Maya smiled faintly, a small warmth rising in her chest. "It's not about me. It's about making sure things don't happen to anyone else." "And it worked, didn't it?" Sarah nodded. "Yeah, it did. Teachers actually follow through now. Even Mr. Thompson commented on it." The cafeteria door swung open, and Principal Andrews appeared, clipboard in hand. He gave Maya a nod, different from the distant, detached look he'd always worn. This one carried recognition, the kind of acknowledgement that said, "You made the system accountable." "Johnson," he said quietly, "I wanted to let you know that the disciplinary actions have been fully enforced. Tyler and his friends have been reassigned and will undergo mandatory counseling. Staff members who fail to intervene have completed sensitivity training. The board has requested a follow-up report in 3 months to ensure policies are enforced." Maya's chest tightened, not with fear, but with relief. Justice, finally measured, had been delivered. "Thank you, sir," she said, voice steady. "I hope it helps others too, so it doesn't happen again." He nodded. "It will. Your evidence made sure of that. You've changed the school." At home that evening, Maya sat at her desk, reflecting on the months of struggle. Her parents joined her, quietly proud. "You've grown," her mother said, voice soft but firm. "Not just in courage, but in wisdom. You've learned how to confront injustice with evidence, strategy, and patience. That's rare," her father added. "And more than that, you've shown that one voice can ripple outward. You've inspired others to speak up." Maya leaned back, a mix of exhaustion and pride filling her chest. The humiliation, anxiety, and late nights hadn't been in vain. They had forged resilience, strategy, and clarity. The next week, she was approached by a group of younger students in the hallway, students who had quietly witnessed the cafeteria incident months before. Maya?" One said, voice small but clear. "We wanted to thank you. We were scared, we didn't know what to do. But seeing you stand up, it gave us courage." Maya felt a lump in her throat. "You're welcome. And remember, always document, always find allies, and never let anyone silence you." The students nodded, leaving with newfound confidence. Maya realized then that the story of her fight wasn't just a personal triumph. It had become a blueprint for resilience for others. Later, she met Sarah in the library. "You know," Sarah said, whispering conspiratorially, "the rumor mill is gone. People still talk, but differently. It's calmer, respectful." Maya smiled. "It's not perfect, but it's better. And that's progress." She opened her notebook, now filled with documentation, reflections, and lessons learned. She reread the timeline. Cafeteria incident, the rumors, counselor's dismissal, the showdown with the principal, and the school board meeting. Every page marked a step toward justice. Every note a record of courage. Her phone buzzed. A message from a younger student she had mentored. "Maya, thank you. I spoke up today. I felt brave because of you." Her chest tightened, proof that the ripples of courage extended beyond her own story. Maya replied simply, "Keep going. Courage grows when shared." Weeks later, a school assembly was called to address harassment, bullying, and accountability. Maya was asked to speak. She stepped onto the stage, facing a sea of students, staff, and administrators. Heart racing, she opened her notebook. "Good morning," she began, voice strong. "Months ago, I experienced public humiliation and harassment here at Lincoln High. I documented it. I spoke up, and I demanded accountability. It wasn't easy. It cost me emotionally. But it mattered, not just for me, but for everyone in the school who deserves to feel safe." The audience listened, rapt. Teachers nodded. Students sat still. The bullies, present but subdued, avoided eye contact. Maya continued, "Silence protects injustice. Speaking, documenting, and holding people accountable creates change. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. And we all have the power to make our school a safer, more just place." She closed her notebook, Looking across the room, the weight of months lifted slightly from her shoulders. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then steady. She smiled faintly, knowing that the system had been challenged. Change had begun, and she had left a legacy. Later, walking home, Maya reflected on the journey. Humiliation, strategy, confrontation, justice, and now influence. She realized that courage wasn't a one-time act. It was a ripple, spreading quietly, inevitably. At the door, she whispered to herself, softly but with certainty, I face fear, I face injustice, and I made a difference. One voice can change everything. Maya closed the door, the sunlight fading outside, but her resolve shining brighter than ever. The school, the students, the system, they had felt the ripples of her courage. And the legacy of that courage would continue, long after the storm had passed.